as a guest. Peace. Hope everybody is doing well. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, of course. Happy Tuesday. One of the best days of the week.
Right. Okay, there we go. But anywho, so today is a very, very special day for us, as well as you all that have been with us. So we are, or should be, finished with our first collective read. Well, not our first collective read, but you know, it's been a minute. So we're finally completing Malidoma, Patrice Somé's Ritual. And I just must say it is one of my favorite literary reads, just all the way around, especially as it relates to us Africans in the diaspora, and as it relates to us who are trying to find healing, definitely through spirituality, through African spirituality. So this is definitely a book to put on your shelf and keep there and pass down, most definitely. Want to add anything? Not everything. You don't even know for 5 minutes. You're so silly. Well, anywho, well, go ahead, please.
No, just happy to be here. I want to thank everybody. Make sure y'all like, share. Again, we definitely feel good when we complete something. So again, we completed this book, and it feels good to complete it. And one thing about our collective that we have here is that it's action oriented, right? So we want to make sure that the things that we learn in the process of reading this book, that we apply these things in real life in real time, right? So again, the name of the book, Ritual, Power, Healing, and Community, right? So the things that we learned in this book, we ought bring it to the community or create community if we don't have one there, as we learned in the book, right? So, I'm just happy to be here, happy to have completed this. I guess we can, if we log off, we log right back on. I'm trying to get this camera. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we can start with check-ins.
Yes. Okay. So, my week has been way, way, way better than last week. No, but last week, a lot of people were under the weather or whatnot because of just the drastic change in the weather. Oh no!
Storm, stop!
Wait a minute. The dog is in the situation.
She almost poured the whole bag down.
Stop it. Okay. Sorry, y'all. The dog is trying to get our daughter snacks over here. All right, but yes, last lot of people that I know, including us, we were under the weather a little bit. So Kwanzaa was very different for us this year, but we still got our commemorations in and honored our 7 days, 7 principles. But like I said, we were kind of shut in, so it was very different for us. But I'm so glad to be doing 100% better. Everybody is better. Everything is sanitized. Everything is great, and I'm just happy again. Like I said, completing this book has been a feat. I'm always glad when we can complete anything, especially when we read a book cover to cover, especially together. I love that. So yes, it's been great.
Yeah, it's definitely power in like studying and collective reading. But my week has been good. Same as Z was under the weather last week, a little bit. So, I'm happy to be here today. Our week is busy as usual. That's the only way we'll have it in this society. It's a lot of work that needs to be done. So we putting in that work.
Right. Back at it.
My week is good.
All right. Well, again, we are having our no pun intended, our farewell discussion in our last section of this book is actually titled The Farewell, where he kind of encompasses everything and consolidates everything that he was talking about throughout this book. And he puts it's all here in the conclusion. And it's, again, a very great descriptive writing on Malidoma's part. I love the way he writes and tells the story and translates from his tribe, like I said, over to the westernized culture for us to understand it. So we will be discussing, like I said, the farewell chapter as we wrap up this book. So before we do that, you want to add to that?
No, again, it's just most fitting that it is named the farewell as we physically say farewell to uh Malidoma Somé because he has transitioned in the last month or so. So, it's fitting, as he talks about the funeral and he talks about the grieving, so on and so forth. It's fitting. So yeah, let's do it.
All right. So in this first section here of the farewell, Malidoma is really talking about the morning or the rising. I'm not sure what time of the day it was, but what time of the day it is. But he's talking about when his grandfather transitioned, and he was, he's waking up in a fog in his dad's house, and he glides out of his dad's house, kind of sleepwalking, if you will, even. And as we know, he's been talking about his grandfather this throughout this whole book. Definitely not only as his grandfather, but as one of his, spiritual guides and mentors and things of that nature. And I believe they are initiated into um, the same house, so to speak, of Beerfor. But this chapter here. He's talking about, again, his grandfather's transition and how he knew something was different because Guso, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Giso, which was his grandfather's very close companion, his friend that he saw with his grandfather often as he did his spiritual work and things of that nature. He talks about him going through his whole life and Giso never speaking a word to Malidoma throughout his whole life until this moment when he tells him he needs to go and see his grandfather, that his grandfather has something to tell him. And he also, Giso goes on to tell Malidoma, you need to go and see your brother, because as we know, the grandfather said that I know you came back, you're my brother reincarnated. So Giso tells him, you need to go check on your brother, not even just grandfather. So he goes, Malidoma goes to his grandfather's compound, which was surprising to me, somewhere he had never been before, because his grandfather never let him in because it was never the time for him to do so until it said either he was initiated or right before the grandfather was about to transition, which is the moment that we're in now. So, Malidoma goes into her grandfather's compound. It's extremely dark inside, so he doesn't know where he's going because, again, he's never been inside of his grandfather's compound before. So he's kind of feeling his way around, but he also hears his grandfather's voice calling his name. So that's what he's more so moving towards for direction, is his grandfather's voice. So again, as he walks into the room where his grandfather is, he sees a bunch of gourds hanging, and he said he can smell different herbs and potions as he's getting closer. So he trips over a pile of dirt, and that dirt ended up being his grandfather's bed, a dirt mound where his grandfather lays. And him and his grandfather have this moment where he's telling him, family history things, little things that he wants him to know. And then Malidoma says Giso then came in and touched him on the shoulder, which startled him a little bit. And he knew then again that there was some type of spiritual ritual exchange happening in this moment. And at that moment, his grandfather looked up at Giso and told him, take care of your grandson. And he then looked at Malidoma and told him to take care of your brother. And he said his grandfather crossed his arms over his chest, and that was the last breath that he took. So when I was reading that at first, and when he said his grandfather did this by telling Giso, take care of your grandson, I was kind of like, what did he mean by that? But then after he passes or transitions, at that moment, Malidoma says that the gourds that were hanging up with the different potions and things, that they just start swinging and swaying all over the place as soon as his grandfather closed his eyes. And that's when Giso took him to the center compound, which is where the elders of the community, that's the highest honor you can get in their tribe, is to be buried in the center compound as an elder. But Malidoma asks Giso, is his grandfather gone? And he says, no, he's living in me. He's in me now. So at that moment, when grandfather told Giso, take care of your grandson, that was him transitioning his body into his best friend and telling Malidoma to take care of your brother, being that Malidoma is grandfather's brother reincarnate. That's where the take care of your brother came from in regards to him and Giso's relationship. So again, just this little part here, which is the conclusion, is like it makes sense of how we are supposed to do our due diligence here as the living to have a comfortable transition into the ancestral realm. That's like the main key here.
Yeah. And for Malidoma, it was the beginning of into what he was supposed to do, right? He was supposed to witness this, to be able to tell the story to us, and to the people who he would end up teaching across the nation, across the water. And again, it's showing us, because again, we want to be able to relate this to us. It shows us that it's a time for everything, right? So Malidoma wasn't able to experience being inside his grandfather's living quarters until a certain time. Even though they were best friends, even though through this whole book you see that they had a wonderful relationship. And I'm not sure, Malidoma, I'm not sure if he says what age he was.
He was 5.
He was 5.
Right.
So again, like we talked about in previous chapters, the children are the closest ones to the elders, right? Because it's a circle, it's a cycle. So again, he surrounded himself, he chose to have Malidoma at his bedside with him. So he surrounded himself with, things that are familiar, people who are familiar, so on and so forth, which was his brother Malidoma. So again, I get, there's a time and place for everything.
Right. And this is also part of, like you said, a further part of Malidoma's initiation, and again, I found it that's why I said I love the way he writes, because the relationship that him and his grandfather had, as you said throughout this book, they were very close. I would think that he was in his 20s or something when his grandfather passed. And it's like, he was just 5. And he has so much wisdom as a 5-year-old. Just being curious, but that was his calling anyway. We know that innately, that was his calling to be a priest, even to translate to us from the other world, as they say. But like I said, I was very surprised at his age when his grandfather passed, because their relationship spanned over 5 years. If you will read, from us reading it, you would think it was a 20-year relationship. But that also goes to say that it doesn't, the actual literal time itself doesn't measure the quality you have inside of a relationship. So that was very, very well written, very well described. A life lesson, like you said, it's not always the time to tell your children this or whoever. It's always a time for everything.
Peace and free the land by any means necessary.
Yes. Peace, peace, peace. Thank y'all for tapping in. We have, okay. Olarifa, peace. Peace. Kaleka, peace. Peace, 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 y'all. We wrapping up the last of our last section of Malidoma Patrice Somé's ritual. We were just talking about, the transition of his grandfather, and how, just in 5 years of knowing his grandfather, he was able to gain so much knowledge and so much wisdom, and just so many, like I said, life lessons just at the age of 5, that it's amazing. It really is. It's amazing what we can do as a people, no matter what age we are, no matter what generation we come from. So Just
Ashe.
a very good love story too, if you will, between him and his grandfather.
Grandfather, brother.
Right.
I say.
Only in the South. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. So he's so silly. So the final part we have, the final section is titled, "How to Ritualize Life."
Right. Peace
Right.
story.
So the final section we're talking about how to ritualize life, um, and just to think about what that means. Right. When we talk about ritual, as it relates to the book and the definitions that we have with Brother Malidoma, right, is that we're adding and recognizing the spiritual aspect in everything that we do, right? And we ritualize that, which involves ceremony, which involves actions. So again, we're talking about to ritualize our life, and he talks a little bit about how the small steps that we can take, right, when we wake up in the morning, doing morning rituals, so on and so forth. And we could talk a little bit more about that.
Right.
But I just want to share this part, and y'all can read along with me. I could, let me see if I can bring it up. All these pages aren't in order. So how to ritualize life. So here uh at the bottom down here, I'm gonna start reading. It says, uh, the West is crowded with people who want healing. This much I have been able to notice. There are people who know that somewhere deep within is a living being, a serious longing for a peaceful, serene life. Right? Uh, these people who are so dissatisfied with the existing system that they will embrace anything that promises to rescue them from a sense of entrapment. Without real ritual, there's only illness. Such illness cannot be healed with pills or drugs or alcohol or shopping at the mall or being tranced out many hours in the day in front of a TV screen.
Right.
Right. So that's telling me that again, we're comparing cultures. We're comparing the indigenous culture and we're comparing this westernized culture. And if we talk about this westernized culture has the machine, right? Keep going, keep going. We don't have time for self. We don't have time for ritual. We don't have time to breathe. The only thing that we have time for is to advance the machine with our physical labor. You know what I'm saying? With our time, with our energy. We just advance the machine, failing to advance ourselves, family, so on and so forth. So when he came over here to teach, to learn, to spread the knowledge of his tribe, he noticed that, you know, we are in Western society, and he speaks a lot about specifically about Black people over here. We are desperate for some healing, right? Yeah. We are desperate and we'll attach to anything that makes us feel good or gives us a little hope, right? And when we talk about hope, we're not talking about it in a positive way. You know, it's hope. It's I hope this happens, right? And we even have examples of like Jim Jones, right, leading the people to drink the Kool-Aid. You know, because there is hope. You know, we have our people as Africans or in the diaspora as Black people. We are the most religiously devout people because we have this sense of hope, right? And we understand and we feel that we need healing. So anything that comes our way that makes us feel good, we're liable to make that our religion, you know. Make that our host, and you know,
even if it's not. And I think that's more so what the conundrum is what Malidoma is talking about, because that could be dangerous too, like you said with the Jim Jones situation. It's like even if it looks a little bit like glitter, we attach ourselves to it. And that's what some of these people know. They know, like I said, spirituality right now for us is very getting very commercialized. A lot of people are jumping into it just because they know, like Malidoma said, we seek it so desperately. Yeah. If we just put it comes from such and such on here, that we will buy it. If we say that we have this ingredient right here, that we're gonna buy it just because of our longing to belong.
Right.
You know, so we have to be very careful about the false prophets, should we say. That too. But we also understand why it's so easy for us to be susceptible or it's so easy for us to be hungry for spiritual feeding.
Right. And real quick, I just want to. It says.
Oh, this on a replay. It says now we'll be talking about Baba Malidoma's transition. Ashe. I wonder who was at his side to share the story. So that was the last chapter we talked about, was the grief ritual as far as the funeral and the passing of a village member, and he will get a high honor because he was as they say, a priest from this world to the other world, and I believe it was a 3-day ceremony that they had for the Malidoma because he was an adult. But yes, the people who are in his initiate class were the ones that were the main point of his ceremony, that acted out his life from beginning to end and what his job was. So yes, he definitely had his tribes, men and women and the children, everybody in the village, literally by his side as he made his final transition. Right. And we can only hope that he went home. We hope that they got him home to have a traditional burial.
Most definitely. I think they knew the importance
right,
of that.
Right, exactly.
And I would hope his ex-wife maybe be able to tell a lot of his story. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we decided yet. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but we may be reading her book next. But maybe she was by his side.
Absolutely.
We can only hope. So just to hop back in what I was saying, excuse me, just hop back in what I was saying. Let's see. He talks about how pills, alcohol, the consumption of mindless watching screens is not going to heal us from our illness, right? And a part of our illness is lacking ritual. We're lacking community ritual, lacking community ceremonies, lacking communities, right? Mm-hmm. Lacking the trust that communities bring. Right. Since we don't have this, it's an ill in our community. Since we don't have trust, on the level to constitute us a community, since we don't have collective work and responsibility on the level that constitutes a community, we are ill.
And like he talked about this other chapter, where we're so comfortable with death that it doesn't bother us, that's a problem. Yeah. Like he said, death should always be an issue, especially in your community, and it should affect everybody.
Yeah. And just like she's talking about with death, even symbolically, what I'm saying? Symbolically, a lot of times our people are mentally dead, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we're dead in the sense that we're not living and we're just going through the motions every day. You know what I'm saying? Versus living, versus building, versus feeling well, right? Mm-hmm. We just go through the motions of getting up, going to work, making his money, paying his bills, spending the time that we are allowed to spend with our family and children, if we have any time to spend with them at all, right? We never have time for self and to build self. And since we are ill, right, we know that we need healing. We are doing things that we think may get us healing, right? Subscribing to medications, alcohol, the vices that we pick up that makes us feel good, because there's something going on the inside, something going on in our community, but it never fulfills us. Period. It never gives us the whole feeling of being healed, and and what that feels like, because we're going about it the wrong way. Right. So again, and I'm glad to see in this time that people are talking about healing, mm-hmm. and people are tapping into different ways to heal. Right. People are, going through different professionals of our community to say, look, I want to try this because I'm going through some things. I want to try journaling. I want to try some Reiki. I want to try this. I want to try that or I want to add some ritual and ceremony into my life because I do want to be healed. And we hope as individually we continue to add ritual into our life to be healed, to be free. But we also want to make sure that we add it on the community aspect, on the community level, on a family level.
And that is productive ritual above all else, because we do rituals now. Yeah. We do some that are not so beneficial to us as individuals or as a community, and that is one thing like Bomani is saying that they're all important and they're all interconnected components. We can only do so many individual rituals, and our highest self is not right there. Our highest self is not doing everything alone. We have to move on to the family rituals, and there's only so many family rituals that you can do that are going to get you to your highest self before we have to get into the community rituals. So they're all, like I said, interconnected. We know that we have a longing, like Malidoma said, to get healed. That's something that he has seen rampantly, and that he can say with conviction and with true fact behind it, is that us in the Western world, us Africans in the diaspora in the Western world over here, we are desperately seeking to find ourselves. We are desperately seeking to have just a peaceful life, just peaceful thinking, to be able to wake up and have control over our life, have control over what we want to do, and definitely to have spiritual control over everything else. So yes, we have to make that. We have to ritualize life, as he said in this chapter.
Right, Ashe, Ashe. And again, here it says, I have come to suspect that the absence of ritual, it said the soul runs out of its real nourishment, and all kinds of social problems then ensue.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the absence of ritual, the absence of a solid culture, the absence of collective principles and things that we live by has led to us in this society. I'm gonna use his words. Have led us to have problems in this society. You know, our soul is run out of nourishment, right? And the whole point of us even talking about ritual is to tap into the spirit, tap into the soul aspect, to recognize the spiritual aspect, to recognize the soul aspect in everything that we do. Right. So that's a part of this whole book of what we're talking about, ritual healing the community, right? That's what we're talking about. So
go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
So here we talking about how to ritualize our life, right? In hopes that as we become more ceremonious as a collective people, the more we become more ritualistic as a collective people, the more we will feel free, the more healing that we'll experience individually and collectively, right? So again, here we're talking about ritualizing our lives. So we already recognize so many things that is already ritual to us. It's ritual in everything that we do, right? From the time that we wake up, from the time that we go to sleep, we got plenty of things that can be considered ritual, right? The difference is of that not being ritualized is that it, you know, when we talk about ritual and ceremony, we talk about the intentions behind it, right? So I know we brush our teeth every morning, but our intentions is just something that we've been doing. And it's like, you know, I just want to get my breath fresh. I want to get my teeth clean, so on and so forth. And there's not really any spiritual intentions behind, you know, brushing your teeth. Whereas it can be.
Yeah, right.
Right. So that it can be because we want to make sure that we are, dang, what's my word?
Staying in tune.
I can't think of my word I learned the other day. But to cleaning yourself in the morning, right? So go through ablution, right? Going through the process of ablutions, of cleansing yourself in the morning, right? Being able to cleanse yourself, cleansing your body, so you can, so it can translate to the mind, so it can translate to a clear day, so on and so forth. But ritualizing that and making it a ritual with spiritual intentions, right? Getting up and we can't.
Is next to godliness. That's where that comes from, you know, right?
And we can't talk about rituals and we can't talk about these ceremonies without talking about making space to honor our ancestors. That's one of the most important things that we can do individually, collectively, as a family, is to honor our ancestors. So you know, when we wake up in the morning, like he says, it doesn't take much to say a small invocation, a small prayer to the ancestors.
Just to be thankful.
It doesn't take much to go to your altar and make sure everything is in order. You know what I'm saying? To make sure the candle flame is burning like you need it to burn. You know, make sure that it's clean, you know, making sure that you have the elements represented, so on and so forth.
And the intent, like you said, intentionally get on Facebook to tell everybody our business, and it's disrespectful. Even like Malidoma said, like we're talking about, to not give reverence and commemoration to the ancestors that you know are helping you work, versus us wanting people who we don't even like to know what we're doing today, or to see the people that we don't like what they're doing today. Like, that's disrespectful to the ritualistic way of living. It's not that we don't read. We read plenty. We're just not reading what we need to be putting into our bodies. Right. You know, social media, we've read books and books and books. Since 2-3 years ago, you've read books. If you just read posts and statuses all the time, I promise you have. So we have to think about these little things, and inputting and omitting things to get to our spiritual, like our highest self spiritually. If we watching an hour of TV, try to get 30 minutes of reading in. We're not asking you to go cold turkey on a lot of this stuff, because it is, a lot of these things are an addiction over here, especially in the Western world where everything is so quick, instant. So just try to work it into your day, and just work it into your regular routine, and eventually everything will balance out, just because your intentions behind it are well, and you do want to do this, not just for yourself, but to do your part in the community, and to do your part, your due diligence in your family, to do your due diligence for your ancestors and for your spirit, all the way around. So yes.
And again, we talking about the topic is ritualizing our lives, right? And a lot of us grew up in the church. A lot of us grew up where we do have rituals in spaces where we need them, you know. So before we would take off on a trip, we would, you know, you'll hear Big Mama praying, talking about, you know, guide our way, guide our path. Uh, you know, before a test even, you know what I'm saying? Just taking that time to honor the ancestors, to honor the spirits, to honor everything that got you in this space at this moment, everything, all the energies that you need and will use to complete this test or task, you know, just taking that time to honor that in everything that we do. So again, if I'm traveling, taking the time to, you know, meditate for traveling grace.
I was about to say, we done heard traveling grace. Y'all know that word.
Traveling grace.
On the highways and the byways.
Y'all so again, taking that time to meditate on that, taking that time to thank the ancestors, to thank your creator for making this path clear and safe for you. Just ritualizing that, you know, you know, ritualizing things that should already be ritualized, the words that we speak to each other, you know, how we speak to each other, telling people you love them, showing people you love them. We need to ritualize these things.
Right, your boundaries, just all those things that help make make people treat us better, and to help us treat each other better.
Yeah, and to see with these rituals, you'll see the better in yourself.
Right.
The praying over our food. That's definitely one of the biggest rituals in our community. You know, but we want to make sure that the power that we're invoking is the right one.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference on what we're talking about now, especially as we, as Black people, get back to things that are culturally familiar to us. Right. So again, we're not invoking the name of white Jesus on our food.
You know what I'm saying? We're not calling your ancestor that is like rowdy as I don't know what, and you trying to go into a peaceful situation, you don't want to call on that one. You know, that ancestor is for another time. So we definitely have to be, like we said, intentional with why we're invoking, who we're invoking, and never telling the spirits to do anything, or never demanding them to do anything. We always come humble in our approach when we're dealing with ancestors and dealing with spirit and this ritual lifestyle. We always come humble in our approach when we're invoking spirits and getting into the spirit realm of things.
So again, just ritualizing our life, you know, community, you know, getting together, and a lot of things we already do, you know, it becomes ritual, the American holidays have become rituals for us, to get together with family, to do family things. Thanksgiving, we getting together with family, we shooting the shit, we cracking jokes. You got the different types of family members that's gonna do their ritualistic things. You got the smokers over there. You got the shit talking aunties over there. You got the bougie,
the children's table.
The children's table. So these things do become ritual.
Right.
But again, the ritual that we're talking about is making sure it's with intentions, and it's making sure that we're building the spirit and recognizing the spirit in the moment. Right?
Absolutely.
Recognize the things that we can't see that got us here. So many different aspects, so many different energies got us to this moment. Right? We may think that it was our car. We may think it was just our body and our will that got us. It was all of our experiences. It was everything. It was the people that we've met on the way. I'm saying, those energies that they gave you, so on and so forth. So we just want to take the time to honor that. Right.
Because energy doesn't die. We know that. We know that for certain. Especially if you're living in the same city and state as your ancestors that came before you. I mean, they definitely still own you. But they will not, again, spirit will not intervene though. Once they've crossed over comfortably into this ancestral realm, they will not come for you unless you come for them. They won't. Unless you honor them, they won't. They're not going to intervene just because in your life. You have to, again, invoke. That's what that is about. Yeah. Invoking them. Offering them things that pleases them. Yeah. Giving them confirmations that the same things we want as human beings. Yeah. The ancestors want as well.
And with ritual, it allows a space for them to come do the business that they need to do. Mm-hmm. Right? Through ritual, through our actions, we can say, I need help in this area, and I'm invoking the spirit of, right? But if we ain't making that space, not just our words, but making that space available for them to come do the work, it's not gonna work. Right. You can't just sit on our expected things, right? So that's what we're working with. So again, I can't stress enough how we should be creating and sustaining our community rituals, our village rituals, our tribe rituals, for those who you consider your tribe, your village, just making sure that, we functioning together, making sure we know each other, making sure that we're in the same spaces together with intentions.
Right. I would say with beneficial intentions of the whole. This cannot be individual. Individual work is part of it, but the bigger picture is community. Always.
All right. And again, something that's big with the Gar tribe is grief, right? Last week we had a whole section talking about grief, the power of grief, how grief allows our ones who transition to fully transition over, and how we here in this society are taught or encouraged not to grieve, even though grieving is prescribed spiritually for us.
It's part of the ritual. Yep.
Right? It's part of the ritual. It's part of releasing. It's part of letting go. It's a part of saying, "Hey, I'm human." It's something about and he gives some examples, and again, I'm going over this part because this is one of the common themes throughout the book. Let's see, the second half of the book is grief. So I just want to take the time to talk a little bit about that. He talks about how in our system, and again, we all can relate. We can relate. I mean, we start the anti-grieving campaign as early as toddlers to our children. What you crying for? What I'm saying? Why we say things to make our children want to suppress their feelings, right? Which in turns, when it's time to grieve, when it's time to assist and allow a person to transition all the way over to the next realm, we holding back tears. We won't even cry for our moms and stuff like that because we don't think that is I don't know, we don't think that's it's something that we should do.
Well, and I think it's because of, like you said, anti grieving, number one. And I think it's because of our state of mind over here. Like I always talk about, it's all about me. It's all about me getting the bag. It's all about, I know I'm here by myself. I know nobody got my back. So that may have a lot to do with when we lose someone. It's like, I mean, we already know that was going to happen. I've always felt, especially if you ever felt abandoned or alone or misunderstood, it's like, I've always been out here by myself. I've always had to take care of myself. So why would I grieve over something that I know is going to continuously happen over and over again over my lifetime?
Yeah.
Or that I've seen happen in a not so great way. You know, I've seen people take it from me in devastating ways, not necessarily natural causes, as they say. And that disconnects you from, you know, death, especially over here as we speak of the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to tap on that as to maybe that could be the reason why we feel like crying is not a thing a stage we need to go through. There you go.
But it definitely has, and we all can attest, it definitely has energy, strong energy associated with it, right? Just the power of you feeling like you have to grieve, right? So again, just being at a funeral, even just thinking about death in the way we think about death in the Western sense makes you sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can sit there and, you know, bullshit ourselves all day. When we think about death, it makes us feel some type of way, unless we are initiated or trained, or we already were able to deal with ourselves and our community, and we know that it's just a transition to the next phase. Right. But most of us are going to get sad. Most of us are going to have strong emotions surrounding death. And if death visits you in a way that, you know, closely to a family member or friend or something like that, we do have emotions, you know, and we do tend to suppress these emotions, you know. But I just say all that to say that there is a lot of energy surrounding grieving, because it doesn't even have to be, or just a sense of making you, yeah, it doesn't have to even be a day. You know, we watch movies and they, you know, what you call tear jerkers. I never cry movies, but she cries all the time. But you know, like movies that are tear jerkers, like, you know, that emotion, and I'll feel some emotion, but I'm gonna hold it in. You know, I ain't gonna let the tears come out, because, and it's not even a manly thing. It's just that
I think it's a life thing. I think it's because you can see yourself in these characters, or maybe one part of your life where you felt like you didn't close this chapter with somebody. And I think that's what happens a lot with us here, is that no matter what, we feel like, damn, I did not spend enough time with this person.
Yeah.
When they pass, I just really thought that I was going to wake up tomorrow and I was going to be able to say whatever I needed to say to them that I didn't say yesterday. And we just take that so for granted. And I think that's where grief comes from a lot too, in the death sense of the word. It's like we just didn't do our due diligence. And we know we didn't do it, you know, and our conscience is just eating at us for that reason. But once I think now, like my dad used to do us, and I didn't want to talk about him dying or anything like that. And he was like, no, I have to prepare y'all for when something happens, because it is going to happen. It's not a sense of I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. No. Like, I want you to not have that in your head right now. Are you in middle school? Like, I'm not always going to be here. And this is why these life lessons are so important. This is why I carry these things from my father to y'all, because I know that I'm going to have to leave here. And I want you to know as much as you can to get through this life, because it's rough.
All right.
And we need these extra energies and spirits and just our ancestral DNA power to help us get through before we transition on to the next round.
I say, and just making, you know, making sure that we are communicating to our children an indigenous way of thinking about transitioning or thinking about death. You know, if we continue to allow them to only experience death in a Western sense, we're not doing them any justice, right? They're gonna be stuck in a sad state. You know, my mom's not here, my grandma's not here, versus preparing them for that and allowing them or teaching them that those energies, those people aren't just gone, right? Because we'll forever honor our ancestors. We'll always remember the names of our ancestors, and they'll always be here with us. Just like the example of the story that Z was talking about with Malidoma and his grandfather, and the was it his friend Guso?
Yes,
and the friend is like, I'm here. He your grandfather ain't went nowhere. You know, his body is his earthly flesh may have, but he's here. He's within me. You know what I'm saying? So again, once we start teaching our children uh in this way and start ritualizing our lives more, we'll be able to deal with death and transition
a little better,
much better.
Because it's so for real. Peace, Mama Sonovi. We'll get to your question in 1 second, but it's so important. And we know that there's power in our words. There's power in our names. There's power in what we name ourselves after our parents even name us, what we want to be called. I know our middle child has his brother's middle name and my youngest brother, both of our youngest brothers' names, first name and middle name. And I tell him all the time, man, you just made that face and you just laughed just like my little brother. You know, that's who you named after and stuff. Or you just did this just like your uncle. Like that the way you just said that sounded just like your uncle would say that. But he's in you. Both of them are like they're in you. That's why you can translate it just like they can, because they are a part of you. And I think that's a very interesting part of us just raising our children, our families, period. Is just to let them know the family members and the ancestral line that you see in them and point that out to them. And you'd be surprised how that ignites the power that's already inside of them. I just wanted to share that.
No, we definitely appreciate it. Mama Shinobi says even the longest life ends in a grave, and that's a Ghanaian proverb. Yes. So again, even our grandest elders, even the longest living people will transition.
Right.
And us as humans, like Z talks about often in other spaces, we know that we're gonna transition. We know that we're gonna die one day. It's the preparing everybody for that. And and Malidoma and the Dagar tribe talk about how in those moments of death, we ought not let it just pass like it was nothing. Right? So we ought not just say, oh, sister so-and-so passed, brother so-and-so passed, you know, and we should normalize that. We should make grandstands and ceremonies and events when somebody passes, just right?
Like we do when they're born.
We should have exactly. We should have community grieving or time off so you can grieve because somebody has transitioned to the next round. Especially if we're talking about right community, tribe, village, and those who are close in family, those who are close to you. You shouldn't just say so and so, oh, Auntie Whoopty Whoop died. No, this is a thing. I need to be off work. I need to be helping the family prepare for the next stage. You know, I need to grieve. I need time to grieve.
Yeah, you know, so I could be my full self when I do come back to the regular world. That's very true. Very much so.
So again, like one of the main ideas as we close out is just making sure that we are tapping back into our indigenous selves. Period. You know, tapping into our indigenous selves, and just being able to take back control of our culture,
right,
of our lives, of our rituals, of our spaces, and
protecting it, as I always say. Protecting our rituals and our sacred spaces always.
And creating. So again, we don't have to have a carbon copy of rituals from the Zulu tribe. We don't have to have a carbon copy of rituals from the Dagar tribe, the Dogon tribe, right? We are prescribed and allowed to create our own rituals according to our circumstances, even here in America. And we see that other cultures, other Africans, other diaspora have done just that. You know, they were able to bring certain aspects from Africa to create whole spiritual systems. You know, we're talking about like Candomblé, you know, Santeria, even you know, capoeira,
Mhm.
right? They were able to, because it's in us, right? It's just manifested in a different way. So again, we are prescribed to create our own community rituals,
Right.
ceremonies, our own community spiritual doings. It's
And-
prescribed for us in our own way and fashion.
right. I was about to say, and there's always going to be, I don't want to say contradiction, but there's always going to be opinions about, what we should do over here traditionally and then modernizing it and how we do it now. I think there's always going to be, a back and forth between the old heads and the new ones of how it should be done. But that's the part of being a community is we all decide what our principles are, and we
Right.
all decide to stick to those.
Yeah.
So that's what like Momani was just saying, we don't have to carbon copy.
Yeah.
We inside of the community who create the community decide what our rights and rights and responsibilities are to each other, and then we go on with that. And I also wanted to tap on one more thing as far as the grief rituals go. Malidoma's tribe is very, very knowledgeable and aware of the fact that grief, as we talked about how grief killed such and such because her husband died, and then she passed maybe a week or a couple of days after. He said they're very aware that you can have so much grief within you that you have not expelled, that it can take you out of this world. Like, it can kill you literally, because your intensity level is so high and your emotions are so high and your body does not know how to translate all of this happening at one moment, that that's why those other people are there who aren't as connected to the person who died, to kind of pull you back and say, that's kind of enough at this moment. So we have to be very careful not to go over that threshold of grief where it's unbalanced and we end up leaving this world ourselves because we didn't do our rituals prior to, or we didn't prepare ourselves prior to the transition happening. Yes, so let's be proactive, very much so, as it relates to our spirituality.
Shay. So we can end at the end of this, at the end of the book. He offered a prayer up to our collective ancestors, and I would love for Z to read it for us. Her beautiful voice, just to close us out. You're welcome. One kiss.
Okay. All right. So, yes.
But before we close out, so again, I think that we'll take you guys' opinions, or you all's opinions. We want to maybe read this book next, and that's it's the spirit of intimacy.
Yes, ancient African teachings and the ways of relationships.
And this will be a way. I know a lot of people have been asking me and Z to do some relationship stuff, just talking about relationship stuff, and to so this may be a way for us to start talking about some relationship stuff.
Yeah, and for all of us to have this conversation.
Yes. And also to help me build me and Z's relationship, help build us up. So, and this is by the ex-wife of Patrice,
yes.
Malidoma, Patrice Somé. So yes, she's from the same tribe, I believe.
Yes.
So she's from the same tribe. So a lot of this wisdom comes from the same place where we just spent the last 10 weeks, at. So again, it'll feel good to jump right into this, but I do want everybody else's opinion. And and if you're down for it, let us know and we can get some books out. Y'all order some books. So on and so forth.
But let's have this conversation. I think we all need to have it, y'all. Regardless if we're doing good, bad, ugly, it just needs to be. We can scratch the surface at least, y'all.
And Mama Sanovi say yes.
Yeah. All right. We got our cue. All right, so I'm going to, excuse me, as Bomani said, this is a beautiful, beautiful invocation. Like he said, Malidoma invoked on our behalf. Everyone who read this book, everyone who's going to read it, even the people who don't know about it. He went ahead and did his due diligence and looked out for us on this one. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read this invocation. And it says, may the spirits of every pertinent direction take notice of their heart's desire. May the forces below pump strength into their feet, that they walk the walk of their life, the walk that heals the wounded truth of their bellies and keeps the eyes of their memory open so they can grow. Ni Yang Maru. May the ancestral fuel burn in their spiritual veins and animate their souls with vision so that they can hold hands. Ni Yang Maru. As they as they walk toward their future, may they wake up fast to the dialogue between the soul and the spirit. And may they labor to clean the world from its paralyzing epidemic of soul barrenness so that tomorrow our children can sing together in Ashe.
Ashe, ashe,
Yes,
ashe.
yes. Love it. I needed that extra kick right there. Any extra spiritual sprinkles that we can get is always good, especially when the intention behind it is for us to be our best.
So again, for our people here locally, definitely stay tapped in with us. We do have some events and some collective ceremonies that hopefully we can begin to create ritual with.
Yes.
You know, so definitely tap in with us. And we do have so many wonderful healers and elders here, you know, so we're gonna make sure that we honor that and are able to tap into that. You know, our people like Mama Sinovia, people like Olarifa, you know, some of our other sisters and that have YouTubes that want to spread the knowledge. You know, we should get together and make sure that we are creating for Birmingham.
Right, we will get together and make sure we're creating, y'all.
Ashe,
We are
ashe.
doing some beautiful things, y'all.
And thank you, Mama. Thank you for joining us. Everybody, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. And we'll be back next week. We'll be back next week, same time. And even if I don't know if we're gonna read this book yet, but we'll talk about it next week. So we'll come back.
Right.
We'll talk about what choice we've made. We'll talk to everybody and see what everybody says. And we just look forward to building with you all.
All right. So we will see y'all next Tuesday here for our discussion on our book. And then we'll see y'all Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time for our IBFA Revolutionary Education Call.
Ashe, ashe.
Yes. All right. Well, peace, power, love, and let's get free, y'all.
Let's get free.